You spawn in. You don't even need to look. Your muscles already know. You're on customs by the storage containers. Big red is to your left. Trailer park spawn is behind you. And you know another team just popped in across the riverbed. You've got about 90 seconds before they either push the land bridge or they set up to snipe you. This is the clockwork of Tarkov. A brutal, predictable, and intimately familiar dance. We've all done it. We know the routes, the timings, the angles. Just imagine for a moment, you spawn in and it's quiet. There's no timer counting down your raid. No predictable enemy spawns rushing your position. You don't even know what part of the map you're on, because there aren't any maps. There is only the map. A sprawling, persistent world where the only thing you can be sure of is that you are not safe. This is the dream of an open world Tarkov, and it would break the game we know forever. So in this video, we're going to break down and just see how attainable this is. The pros, the cons, the difficulties. Hope you guys enjoy. To really get how huge this change would be, we have to be honest about the current state of Tarkov. As much as we love its unforgiving nature, the game runs on a loop that, for veteran players, has become almost a science. The raid system, with its set player counts and static spawns, has created a metagame that's all about knowledge. Knowing the maps is one thing, but knowing exactly where and when other players will show up is a massive advantage. Just think about it. When you spawn on Lighthouse, you can pretty much call in the first 2 or 3 minutes, 2 or 3 seconds of that raid based on your location. You know if you have a good spawn that lets you bolt for high tier loot, or a bad one that forces you to either hide or fight your way through players who got a head start. It's a system where your luck on the spawn dice can decide how your entire raid goes before you even take a step. This meta knowledge is so powerful that it can feel like 90% of raids are decided by RNG, and frankly, it can get a little stale. And then there's the timer, that ever-present, anxiety-inducing countdown that sets the pace for every raid. It forces a rhythm, a frantic rush at the start, a calculated mid-game, and then the mad dash to an extract. These extracts are fixed, known locations. Choke points that are basically magnets for campers waiting to pick off anyone desperate to get out. The whole experience is trapped inside this 40-minute bubble. Once the timer hits 0, or everyone's gone, it resets. Bodies vanish, doors close, loot reappears. It's a fresh slate every time. And while that makes for a thrilling, repeatable loop, it shatters the illusion of a living, breathing world. It feels like a stage, and every raid is just another performance of the same play. Now, let's shatter that clockwork. Picture a Tarkov with no raid instances, no timers, no synchronized starts. Instead, there's one single, persistent server. A massive, seamless landmass stitched together from all the maps we know and love. From the industrial maze of customs to the dense forest of woods and the sprawling decay of streets of Tarkov. In this Tarkov, you don't start a raid, you just enter the world. Players would filter in and out on their own time, from different entry points scattered across the landscape. The whole concept of spawning would be gone. No more spawn waves, no more immediate threat of a team rushing you from a known spot 30 seconds in. But that doesn't mean you're safer. In fact, it's the exact opposite. The tension would shift from that sharp, predictable spike in the first 5 minutes to a constant, soul-crushing dread. The sound of footsteps could come from anywhere, at any time. The player you run into could have been in game for 10 minutes, or 10 hours. There could be a fresh spawn with a pistol or a geared out titan who's been clearing territory all day. Every single encounter becomes a terrifying unknown. Extraction would also have to be completely reimagined. Instead of a few static, heavily camped spots, maybe you'd have dynamic extraction points, a chopper that lands for 5 minutes in a random field, a boat that shows up at a different spot on the coast, or even player triggered events that open up an exfil window. The risk of campers would still be there, but their job gets a lot harder when they can't just sit on one spot all the time. It would force a shift from passive camping to active hunting. So, how would a persistent world actually work? Especially when it comes to the lifeblood of Tarkov, the loot. For the perfect blueprint, we need to look at another icon of the survival genre, DayZ. DayZ's approach to loot is the key to making a persistent world feel alive. Right now in Tarkov, loot is instanced. A raid starts, the game fills the containers, and that's that. The best stuff is in high-risk locations, creating predictable loot runs that we all have memorised. An open-world Tarkov inspired by DayZ would flip this on its head. Loot would spawn dynamically and persistently, all governed by a central loot economy. Instead of resetting every 40 minutes, loot would only replenish after an area has been left alone by players for a while. Think about what that means. A hot spot like the Shoreline Resort, once it's picked clean, would stay empty for a long time. This creates real, player-driven scarcity. The most popular spots would be barren, forcing players to explore remote, less travelled areas to find anything good. It would reward actual exploration and risk-taking, not just memorising a route. This system also turns the world itself into an intelligence source. Discarded items from players 2 minutes before yourself heading along the same route. It allows you to gain intel, it allows you to track, it allows you to hunt. It's proof that another player was here, and recently. The world gains a memory. Finding a trail of looted buildings doesn't mean you missed out on gear, it means you're on someone's trail. It builds a narrative in real time. Is the person who did this long gone? Or are they in the very next building, listening to you? This kind of environmental storytelling is what makes games like DayZ so tense. And in my opinion, it would elevate Tarkov's immersion to the insanest of new levels. A persistent world wouldn't just change loot spawns, it would fundamentally change how we interact with each other. Without that 40-minute timer pushing everyone toward conflict and extraction, the social dynamics could become way more complex. In the current game, cooperation is rare and usually transactional. In an open world, the sheer scale and constant danger would make surviving as a solo player incredibly difficult. This would naturally lead to more emergent social gameplay. Temporary alliances might become common. You could team up with a stranger to clear a town, agreeing to split up afterward. It would be so much more gut-wrenching when it comes after an hour of struggling together, not just a 5-minute standoff. We could see the birth of player-driven events. Groups forming impromptu factions to control the water treatment plant for a day, setting up tolls on bridges, or orchestrating complete ambushes. The stories would no longer be about what happened in one raid, but about epic journeys, long-running feuds, and legendary moments that persist in the world for everyone to see. And this brings us to gear fear. In an open world, gear fear would be cranked up to 11. It's no longer about losing a kit you spent 10 minutes building for a 40-minute run. It's about losing your best gear 3 hours into a deep expedition. When you're stranded miles from your stash, knowing the journey back is a nightmare, every piece of equipment, every bullet, every bandage would carry the weight of time and the effort it took to get there. The stakes wouldn't just be higher, they would be monumental. Of course, we have to ground this dream in reality. If this is such a great idea, why hasn't Battlestate Games just done it? The short answer is that building a seamless open world with Tarkov's detail and fidelity, it's a massive technical challenge. BSG has been pretty open about this. The biggest hurdle is server performance. Keeping a giant persistent map running with dozens of players and complex AI and thousands of dynamic items is incredibly demanding. Streets of Tarkov, which is just one map, already pushes modern PCs to the limit. Now imagine trying to render that plus every other map all at once. The AI would need a complete overhaul. Tarkov's scavs and bosses are designed for self-contained maps. In an open world, they'd need far more advanced AI to navigate and behave intelligently across a huge dynamic environment. And sound design. A pillar of Tarkov's gameplay would have to be scaled up massively to work properly over huge distances. BSG's stated plan seems to be pragmatic compromise. Not a truly seamless open world, but a free roam mode, where maps are stitched together. This might mean moving from one map to another through a loading screen, which would allow for longer journeys across multiple zones, without the immense technical strain of a single unified world. This approach could still give us a lot of benefits, extended raids and interconnected zones, while being technically feasible. Now, we have seen the issues with Transitions, spawning in on top of other players, a solo player on top of a 4-man squad. It's over. Changing Escape from Tarkov from a session-based shooter into a persistent open world would be the single biggest evolution in its history. It would be a total shift away from predictable loops and meta knowledge towards something far more primal and terrifying. It would trade the certainty of spawn points for the absolute unknown of a dynamic world. It would replace the artificial pressure of a timer with the genuine crushing weight of survival. It's a huge, maybe even impossible vision. The technical hurdles are immense, and what we actually get might be more like interconnected maps than a true open world. But the core idea is still intoxicating. It would change Tarkov from a game you play into a game you survive in. But I want to know what you think. Is this the ultimate evolution for Tarkov? Or would it lose the fast-paced action that defines the game itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this breakdown and concept, think about subscribing for more deep dives into the games we love. This has been XB. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.